Representatives from Ukraine, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States rushed to Geneva to discuss the so-called Trump peace plan to end the war in Ukraine. Negotiations began on Sunday and will continue on Monday. On Sunday, talks with various parties continued until almost late in the evening. Following the meetings, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio briefly told reporters that discussions would continue on Monday and that work on the peace plan had accelerated significantly over the past 4 days. Asked whether European countries had proposed an alternative, Rubio replied that he had not seen any other plan from Europe. Ukrainian officials on Sunday cautiously but generally positively spoke of the negotiations and the peace plan itself in their official statements. Despite the fact that both Kyiv and Brussels have previously expressed numerous reservations regarding this document, it is important that there is dialogue with American representatives and that there are signals that President Trump's team is listening to us, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky noted in his evening address. After the first session of negotiations with the American side, Andriy Yermak, the head of the presidential office, called the meeting productive and stated that the parties had achieved very good progress and were moving forward towards a just and lasting peace. Further quote, "Our presidents will make the final decisions," Yermak emphasized. Rustam Umarov, a member of the delegation and secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, reported that the new version of the peace plan already takes into account Ukrainian wishes. Further quote, "The current version of the document, although in the final stages of approval, already reflects most of Ukraine's key priorities," he noted. Meanwhile, European and American sources indicate that the document in its current form requires changes. Washington Post journalists published counter-proposals from European countries to Trump's peace plan. It proposes not to restrict the actions of the Ukrainian armed forces and to return control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant to Ukraine. The European proposal also calls for ensuring unimpeded passage along the Dnieper River for Ukraine and returning control of the Kinberg Spit, currently occupied by the Russian Federation, to Kyiv. The German publication Bild reports that the Europeans are also attempting to amend the clause in the plan regarding the transfer of the part of Donbass currently under Ukrainian control to Russia. Furthermore, the EU is unsatisfied with the mechanism for using $300 billion in frozen Russian assets. Another contentious issue is a security guarantee for Ukraine and a limit on the size of the Ukrainian armed forces. The U.S. administration believes that the security guarantees in the current initiative are not yet sufficiently reliable, writes Washington Post columnist David Ignatius, citing officials. The plan is subject to change. Specifically, Trump may increase or remove the limit on the size of the Ukrainian armed forces. The supply of long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine to strengthen post-war deterrence in the event of a peace agreement is also being discussed. The publication also provides new details. An American official told Washington Post that the U.S. and its allies intend to help Ukraine build a security wall along the ceasefire line using advanced technologies. However, the source did not specify what exactly they meant by security wall. Meanwhile, White House officials continue to send mixed signals to Kyiv regarding the prospects of this peace initiative. For example, U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine Kit Kyla, who according to media reports will leave his post in January, emphasized that the document is a framework agreement that Ukrainians must accept. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio assures that the peace plan was developed in the U.S., taking into account proposals from both Moscow and Kyiv. Meanwhile, Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen noted that the peace plan contains elements that Ukraine and U.S. allies will never accept, including restrictions on new NATO membership and the size of Ukrainian armed forces.